the first player on this list, Tyler, players that have underperformed. We took him in, I took him in the first round. Some people took him in the second round. Brian Thomas. He's sitting right now. He's as the wide receiver 54. We've seen him dropping passes, like only had one catch in week 1. Talk to me. Are you worried at all about Brian Thomas or no?
I mean, slightly. The only concern that I really have is just the Yips last game that, I mean, everybody kind of knows about now, him shying away from contact. But, I mean, he's still a young player. Like, there's no reason why he couldn't, make up for it next week. But out of all, like, the first-round picks, anybody that you could have potentially drafted in the first round, maybe even, like, Nico Collins, although – like, I just think that's the offense as a whole. But outside of everybody else that you could potentially have drafted, yeah, I would say I'd be the most concerned about him, Brian Thomas. But that's not to say that things can't change and he can't get better.
Yeah, they came out and said he was dealing with a wrist injury, which I think sounds like an excuse for bad play. But for me, I'm not worried about him yet. Last year, he finishes the wide receiver 4, and he didn't have the greatest start. It was the second half that really carried him. So I think if you look at a 2-game sample size, it's frustrating, especially for somebody who took him in the first round. I think for now, just temper your expectations. If you drafted him to be, this elite wide receiver, top 5 wide receiver, he's probably not going to be that, at least for the foreseeable future. And Trevor's been
drafted him to be Malik Neighbors. I don't know if he's going to be Malik Neighbors.
Hey, Malik went crazy. But when you think about it, like Brian Thomas, if you drafted him to be this elite guy, he just isn't there yet. And I think that maybe with time, as they learn this offense, like new scheme, I think there's time for that. So put it this way. Let me ask you a question. Do you think he's closer to top 5 receiver or outside of the top 15? Which one do you think he's closer to?
Outside the top 15. You think
there's a better chance he's like wide receiver 2 than like elite wide receiver?
Yeah, I don't think I never really looked at him as a top 5 kind of guy. Like there's other guys I had. So I think he's closer to 10 than 5 personally. And
see, I think the opposite. I think he has the upside, and I think they got to figure things out in Jacksonville.
Who's he going
to Travis Hunter doesn't even look that good.
Yeah, but like, okay, is he going to outproduce CeeDee Lamb?
I think he's closer to top 5. No, he's not going to. CeeDee Lamb,
Puka,
Jamar Chase with no Joe Burrow, maybe. I don't see it happening. But I'm saying like a candidate. Justin Jefferson without JJ McCarthy, or shit, even with JJ McCarthy right now, I don't know if he's a top 5 guy. So you got like St. Brown and Puka. I think those guys are kind of. I can assume that they're
easily way better.
Okay, and then Malik. That's really it.
I think Malik definitely.
That's 4. That are like for sure.
Yeah, I guess Justin Jefferson is like pretty. I mean, yeah.
I still like Jefferson, but like if I could see him,
I think Carson Wentz is going to be better. To be honest, for right now,
that'd be a very interesting storyline. So, what about Nico Collins? We got Nico Collins sitting at wide receiver 46 right now. We saw he caught the touchdown early yesterday, which kind of saved the fantasy day. But it's been a slower start for a guy that was expected to take this leap into the top 5. So a lot of people drafted him to be like what he was at the top of last year, which looked like he could be the best receiver in fantasy football. And it kind of looks like right now this offense isn't clicking the way that we want. Showed some flashes against Tampa, but not exactly what we drafted Nico Collins to be. Panic meter, are you concerned, not concerned?
I'm right there with Brian Thomas Jr. The one thing is like, and here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. Like these guys have new systems. So it's just usually the defenses in the beginning of the year always kind of have the advantage, although this weekend was a pretty big offensive weekend. But defenses typically have the better advantage because the offenses, majority of these guys don't play in the preseason anymore. So the offenses aren't right. They're not clicking. I'm not too worried about Nico Collins, though. I think he's a stud. I think he's right there with Brian Thomas Jr. If I had to say top 5 to top 15, I'd say closer to 15. But I still think he'll be a wide receiver 1 at the end of the year. I wouldn't be concerned.
I think if I had to say like panic level for Nico Collins, I would have him at the back end wide receiver 1 still.
Yeah, which is where he was kind of going anyways.
I feel like it's kind of like Brian Thomas. He was in that weird range of we know he's talented, But is he a top 5 guy or is he outside of the top 10? Like, and I think he was in that weird range of him, AJ Brown, Puka, Malik Neighbors. Like, there was a bunch of question marks about systems, quarterbacks, new additions to the team. And I think Nico, for not having Joe Mixon, having this battered offensive line, and him and CJ Stroud not being on the same page at all times, like, it's starting to show. So I just would tear him down, like you talked about. It's very similar to Brian Thomas. I'm not panicking, not flipping them for peanuts. Like, I'm keeping these guys on my team for when they do have their wide receiver 1 weeks. Out of the two, which would you rather have, Brian Thomas or Nico?
I'd rather Nico Collins, to be honest with you.
I think Nico's probably safer. I don't know. I probably would still play the upside with Brian Thomas, but yeah, I feel you there. What about Drake London? I had a phenomenal week 1, and then obviously was dealing with the shoulder. I've had a few questions come in about his.
I wouldn't say a phenomenal week 1.
Like, I think the looks were there. Looks were there.
Yeah, the looks were there. I think for him, it's just, and this was kind of my big thing with Drake London heading into the season, was just, we don't know what Michael Penix is. And I still don't think we know truly what Michael Penix, like, he's basically a rookie. I know he played 3 games at the end of last year, but he needs time to develop, still time in this offense to get everything to click. So I'm not the thing with these guys that we've talked about so far is just, I think they're very, very good real life players that I believe in the talent. Now, maybe the situation isn't going to have them see the upside that we potentially thought, but I'm not panicking once again on Drake London. It's still really early. He's still seeing a ton of targets. It just needs a click. Maybe it never clicks. Like, that could be a thing that it just doesn't click, but I'd buy into it clicking. We'll just have to see what happens, though.
I'd buy into it clicking as well. I like Drake London, and I've kind of had him as like a second round guy, and I don't really see a need to panic. Like, we saw 15 targets the first week. And obviously, I think he was dealing with the shoulder. Darnell Mooney's back. The offense really didn't get clicking the way, like, it was kind of the Bijan Robinson game. So for me, I'm not overly worried about like Drake London. I think he will bounce back at some point. It's just maybe he's not the top 5-ish type receiver that he was last year. So I think just the common theme with some of these elite receivers might just be like, yo, we didn't get the right value on them. They're a little bit lower tier. We're a little pre-optimistic on these guys based on last season. It's a new season, new things in place. Last receiver I want to get to before we start talking about some running backs, AJ Brown. And I was a big AJ Brown guy. Like, in the second round, I thought the value was there. Thought he had that 1,400-yard, 1,500-yard potential. But, I mean, Jalen Hurts isn't even throwing for fucking 200 yards, Tyler. Like, it's bad.
Yeah. He's another guy that it's tough because I just don't think this Eagles offense looks very good right now is the problem. And another thing, like, once again, none of these guys played in the preseason. It's also a brand new offense coordinator. So it's not – I would be buying low just because I still think A.J. Brown will have eventually. But one thing, we talked about this, me, you, and P, we talked about this, was the loss of who was it again? What's his name? Went to New Orleans off the top of my head.
Oh, Kellen Moore.
Kellen Moore. Yes, the loss of Kellen Moore could be significant because I don't know if people remember. Now, A.J. Brown still had a really good year that year. But prior to that year with Kellen Moore, now they did bring in Saquon. They were ready to, like, all the Eagles fans were ready to fire Nick Sirianni. Like, everybody wanted him out of there. And then all of a sudden they bring in Kellen Moore. Obviously, you bring in Saquon. Things look better. But, like, what if Kellen Moore was just so important? Now, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, that's it. I'd still be buying low on A.J. Brown. Personally, I still believe in the talent. But, yeah, like, especially seeing Russell Wilson throw for 450 yards last week and that nothing happened week 1 for that offense.
Yeah.
Doesn't look good.
I can't tell, like, what it is, bro. It looks like they're keeping everything so close to the line of scrimmage. There's not really taking a lot of chances downfield.
Yeah.
It's just like, what is this offense? They're cool with just being like nickel and dime and play defense, which I guess, I was expecting, like, hey, we did that through Saquon last year. We let him have a shine. Like, we're going to try to go through the passing game this year so we can be a little bit more dynamic. That's not the fucking case. They decided, no, we're going to stick to the ground game. I'm concerned about A.J. Brown. I don't know, like, he's had 1,400-yard seasons pretty much every year he's been there and, like, on pace last year dealing with the injuries. But I have concerns this year. I think at some point we see this thing start to click. maybe they'll have to test it, but it's like they keep winning football games. Why would they change? That's where I'm at. If they're winning football games, I just don't see a change. So a couple of tough decisions there on the receiving front.